What if I told you the secret to reversing decline and unlocking vibrant health isn't in a pill, but right there in your kitchen? Today, I'm revealing 8 miracle superfoods, zero carb, zero sugar, that hospitals might not emphasize, but are absolutely foundational for seniors wanting maximum longevity. This is about changing your life, starting now. Don't go anywhere. Let's get straight to a vital truth. What you choose to eat today is directly shaping your health tomorrow, especially after 40. Forget the fads. Forget the confusion. Today, we're cutting through the noise to talk about the right foods, the ones that truly help you stay strong, sharp, and independent, avoiding those metabolic traps of sugar and bad carbs. This isn't just about living longer. It's about living better, longer. I'm going to share some crucial insights about how our bodies change with age. Now, let me be super clear right from the start. Carbohydrates are not inherently evil. They're not the enemy. But when we look at the solid data, particularly in older populations, we see something important. Many seniors become increasingly insulin resistant over time. Your body just doesn't handle carbs and sugar as easily as it used to. Combine that with the natural reduction in muscle mass we experience and less metabolic flexibility, meaning your body isn't as good at switching between burning carbs and burning fat. And suddenly that healthy whole wheat toast might actually not be doing you any favors. What we truly need, what your body is crying out for, is a dietary strategy that minimizes those wild blood sugar swings, strongly supports keeping your lean muscle, and boosts your body's energy-making engines, your mitochondria. So here are 8 of the very best foods I recommend, based on extensive scientific literature and my own decades of clinical experience, for seniors who genuinely want to eliminate unnecessary sugar, smartly manage carbs, and stay metabolically resilient, vibrant, and strong. When we talk about optimizing your nutrition for a long, healthy life, especially as we age, the conversation inevitably comes down to simplicity. What foods actually move the needle? What truly delivers the most value per calorie, per gram of protein, per burst of vital nutrients? You'll often find people reaching for the latest superfood trend or some exotic new supplement, spending a lot of money. But sometimes, the most powerful answer is much more humble, much more accessible. Sometimes the answer is just eggs. From a biochemical, physiological, and practical standpoint, eggs are arguably one of the most perfect foods available to humans. I don't say that lightly. I say it because when we truly examine what your body needs, particularly as you age, we see that eggs deliver on multiple crucial fronts: protein quality, nutrient density, metabolic neutrality, and sheer practicality. Let's start with the most obvious metric: protein quality. As we age, we all begin to experience a progressive, natural loss of skeletal muscle mass and function, a condition known as sarcopenia. It's not just about vanity or feeling a bit weaker. Sarcopenia is directly linked to an increased risk of mortality. Your muscle is one of the most reliable predictors of survival in older adults, not just because of physical strength, but because of its vital role as a metabolic sink. It acts like a glucose buffer, helping to manage blood sugar, improves insulin sensitivity, and provides critical amino acids during periods of stress or illness. To actively combat sarcopenia, we need enough protein, but not just any protein. We need high-quality, easily absorbed protein, rich in essential amino acids, particularly leucine, which is the main trigger for building new muscle. Eggs provide exactly that. A large egg contains about 6 to 7 grams of high biological value protein, and it has one of the best amino acid scores of any food. Its leucine content per gram is also among the highest. In fact, the whole egg, white and yolk together, has been used as a gold standard in protein quality assessments for decades. When you eat eggs, you're not just providing raw material. You're triggering a powerful response. You're signaling your cells to build and repair. But protein alone doesn't tell the full story. A common trap I see in nutritional discussions is focusing too much on big nutrients like protein, fat, or carbs, and forgetting about the tiny, yet mighty micronutrients. This becomes particularly problematic as we age, because our medication use often increases, and our body's demand for certain vitamins like B12, vitamin D, and choline rises significantly. Here again, eggs deliver in spades. Take choline. It's one of the most underappreciated nutrients out there, but it's vital for brain health, metabolism, and liver function. Most older adults don't get enough, especially those who avoid animal products or egg yolks because of outdated fears about cholesterol. A single large egg yolk contains about 125 milligrams of choline, more than twice the amount found in a 3-ounce serving of salmon. Choline is crucial for building acetylcholine, a key brain chemical involved in memory, attention, and muscle function. It's also needed for building healthy cell membranes, especially in your liver and brain. Not getting enough choline has been linked to fatty liver, cognitive decline, and other issues. Then there's lutein and zeaxanthin, two amazing compounds that gather in your retina and help protect against macular degeneration, the leading cause of vision loss in seniors. You don't need a supplement for these. You just need to eat the yolk. The way your body absorbs these compounds from eggs is significantly higher than from plant sources because they're packaged beautifully within the egg's natural fat. Again, the form matters more than just the quantity. Eggs are also rich in fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K2, especially if they come from pasture-raised hens. Vitamin D, for example, is notoriously difficult to get from food alone, but eggs provide a small, meaningful contribution. More importantly, they come with the necessary helpers for proper absorption. That really matters. And yes, we absolutely need to address cholesterol. For decades, eggs were unfairly criticized because of their dietary cholesterol content, about 185 milligrams per yolk. The old belief was simple. More dietary cholesterol equals more blood cholesterol, which equals more heart disease. But that's simply not how your body works. We now understand that for most people, the cholesterol you eat has a minimal impact on your actual blood cholesterol levels, especially the problematic kind. Your liver plays a much bigger role in regulating cholesterol than the eggs you eat for breakfast. In fact, for many people, eggs can actually improve lipid profiles when consumed as part of a smart, lower carbohydrate diet. They can increase your good HDL cholesterol, help your bad LDL particles become larger and less harmful, and reduce harmful triglycerides. Of course, everyone is a little different. Some individuals, called hyperresponders, do show significant changes in lipids with high egg intake, and they should be monitored by their doctor. But for the vast majority of people, eggs are not the enemy. They're a truly misunderstood ally. Another huge advantage eggs offer is their effect on satiety. As we age, our appetite can sometimes change, or we might crave more carb-heavy foods. Eggs are fantastic for helping you control hunger. They have a high satiety index, meaning they make you feel full longer. That's partly due to their wonderful protein and fat content, but also because of their positive impact on gut hormones that control hunger. If you're trying to manage your blood sugar and avoid insulin spikes, a critical priority for older adults dealing with prediabetes or full-blown type 2 diabetes, starting your day with eggs instead of toast or cereal can dramatically improve your blood sugar levels after meals. I have seen patients cut their insulin requirements in half just by replacing their breakfast with a 2-egg omelet and avocado. Then there's the issue of practicality. Most of my older patients don't want a complicated food strategy. They want something they can understand, prepare quickly, chew easily, and tolerate well. Eggs check every single box. They're portable, simple to cook, and easily digestible, even for individuals with dental issues or sensitive stomachs. Scrambled, poached, boiled, or as part of a frittata, eggs adapt to nearly any culinary situation. For those on limited incomes or fixed budgets, eggs are also incredibly cost-effective. Few foods offer such a high return on investment per dollar. What about the fear of contamination or foodborne illness? It's largely overblown. Yes, raw or undercooked eggs can theoretically carry salmonella, but modern food safety practices have dramatically reduced that risk. If someone is severely immunocompromised or very frail, sure, you might stick to hard-boiled or fully cooked versions, but for most, the risk is negligible, especially if you're buying from reputable sources. Let's also talk about context. In nutritional science, context is everything. If you're consuming eggs within the framework of a standard American diet, loaded with refined carbs, unhealthy industrial seed oils, and ultra-processed junk, you're not going to see the incredible benefits I'm talking about. But in the context of a nutrient-dense, carbohydrate-controlled whole food diet, eggs are a foundational pillar. They work perfectly with other longevity-promoting behaviors like resistance training, sleep optimization, and smart eating windows. When you combine those elements, you powerfully shift the trajectory of aging in a profound way. I've had patients in their 70s and 80s actually improve their body composition, stabilize their long-term blood sugar, reduce their medication load, and report better cognitive function, simply by making eggs a consistent part of their diet. And they don't just feel better, they perform better. Strength improves, balance improves, even mood improves, thanks to increased brain chemical availability and stabilized blood sugar. There's one more element worth mentioning: our psychological relationship to food. Aging often comes with a narrowing of choices, dietary restrictions, medications, changes in taste or smell. Eggs offer a sense of continuity. They're familiar, comforting. There's a deep behavioral value in eating foods that feel safe and enjoyable. And from a compliance standpoint, that matters just as much as the biochemistry. So, where does this leave us? It leaves us with a humble food that deserves a starring role in the conversation about longevity nutrition. Not because it's trendy, not because it fits some ideological framework, but because it works. Eggs are dense in what we need more of: protein, choline, beneficial carotenoids, vitamins, and naturally free of what we need less of: sugar, refined carbs, and inflammatory compounds. They help preserve lean muscle, stabilize energy, support brain health, and promote fullness. They do this efficiently, inexpensively, and with remarkable reliability. It's easy to overcomplicate nutrition, especially as we age. But sometimes the answer isn't another supplement or obscure superfood. Sometimes it's just eating 2 or 3 eggs and getting on with your day. That's not just nutrition, that's smart strategy. And for anyone serious about extending their healthy, vibrant years, it's one worth adopting. Now, when we're talking about low-carb, zero-sugar foods that truly move the needle on metabolic health and longevity, especially for us as we age, few are as overlooked and underappreciated as sardines. And that's truly a shame because, from a nutritional density standpoint, sardines hit almost every target that matters. They're incredibly high in easily absorbed protein, they're rich in long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, and they're packed with micronutrients that support your cardiovascular health, bone density, immune function, and even brain preservation. The discussion has to start with their omega-3 content, specifically EPA and DHA. These aren't the plant-based versions that your body struggles to convert. We're talking about direct, ready-to-use EPA and DHA, which help control everything from widespread inflammation to the flexibility of your cell membranes and how your genes express themselves. Most people, even those who eat fish occasionally, don't get anywhere near optimal levels of these crucial fats. Yet EPA and DHA are critical for reducing unhealthy fats in your blood, improving how your blood vessels work, and lowering the risk of sudden heart problems. They also help calm irregular heart rhythms and stabilize heart rate variability, which we now understand is a significant marker of your nervous system's health and resilience. Now, when we're looking at older adults, especially those over 60, these benefits become even more relevant. Inflammation naturally increases with age. We call it inflammaging. It's subtle, chronic, and low-grade, but it's always there, and it speeds up everything from hardened arteries to cognitive decline. EPA and DHA effectively blunt that signal. They help calm inflammation and shift your body's response towards healing rather than continuing inflammation. That's incredibly important, especially if you're dealing with conditions like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, or metabolic syndrome. Sardines are one of the most efficient ways to get these amazing fatty acids, without the oxidation issues you sometimes get with supplements, or the high mercury risk that comes with larger fish like tuna. There's also the matter of protein. Each small can of sardines, say around 3.5 ounces, contains roughly 20 to 25 grams of high-quality, complete protein. And just like eggs, sardines deliver a solid dose of leucine, that crucial amino acid that triggers muscle protein synthesis. We know that aging makes our muscles less responsive to protein, a phenomenon called anabolic resistance. So older adults don't just need more protein. They need it more often, and they need it from sources that truly get that muscle-building process going. Sardines do exactly that. They're easy to chew, easy to digest, and because they're so nutrient-dense, you don't need to eat huge amounts to get the benefits. Let's talk about calcium. One of the most common concerns among aging populations, particularly women after menopause, is osteoporosis. Bone density declines, fracture risk increases, and the standard advice often points to calcium supplements or dairy. But sardines offer a better, more easily absorbed solution. When you eat sardines with the bones, which are soft and fully edible, you're getting a significant amount of naturally occurring calcium. But more importantly, you're getting it alongside vitamin D, phosphorus, and magnesium, crucial helper nutrients required for proper calcium absorption and use in your body. You're also avoiding the risks sometimes linked to calcium supplementation, which in some studies has been tied to arterial hardening and increased heart risk when taken alone. The nutrient profile doesn't stop there. Sardines are rich in selenium, a powerful antioxidant that helps protect against cellular damage. They also provide a meaningful dose of vitamin B12, which supports brain function, red blood cell production, and nerve health. Again, all critical for aging adults who are often deficient due to decreased stomach acid and absorption issues. We even find some vitamin K2, another underappreciated nutrient involved in directing calcium to your bones rather than your arteries. And here's something that often gets overlooked. Sardines are canned right at the source, typically within hours of being caught. That means minimal processing, no time for spoilage, and very little nutrient degradation. Contrast that with many fish oils or highly processed food products where oxidation and quality control are real concerns. With sardines, you're eating a whole, intact food in its natural form, with the added benefit of being shelf-stable, portable, and cost-effective. I often talk about how important it is for a healthy food to also be easy and enjoyable to eat. It doesn't matter how perfect a food is on paper if people won't eat it. That's where sardines sometimes have an image problem. Some people dislike the texture, others the smell. But once you understand the health benefits, that barrier becomes more psychological than physical. My advice: Start simple. Choose sardines packed in olive oil, not cheaper, less healthy oils. Add them to a salad, or enjoy them with avocado. Over time, your taste buds adapt. The benefits, however, are immediate and compounding. So if you're building a healthy eating plan for someone in their 60s, 70s, or beyond, someone who needs to maintain muscle, reduce inflammation, protect their brain, and keep their heart in rhythm, sardines are a food that deserves a permanent spot on the plate. Not because they're trendy or exotic, but because they simply work. They're metabolically quiet, packed with biology-friendly nutrients, and incredibly efficient. And when it comes to longevity, that's exactly what you want. When it comes to pure nutrient density, real measurable efficiency per calorie, very few foods can compete with beef liver. And yet, it's one of the most neglected foods in the modern diet. We've moved so far away from how our ancestors ate, and in doing so, we've also moved away from some of the most biochemically potent tools available to us. Beef liver isn't a trendy superfood. It's a metabolic and nutritional powerhouse that supports virtually every system in your body, especially as you age. When your body's nutrient demands increase, and your absorption efficiency naturally decreases, liver becomes less of an optional add-on and more of a strategic intervention. Let's start with vitamin A, not beta-carotene, the plant-based version that's poorly converted in many people, but true preformed retinol. Liver is the single most concentrated source of this easily absorbed vitamin, which plays an essential role in vision, immune function, skin health, and gene expression. For seniors, the benefits are significant. Vitamin A deficiency is surprisingly common in older populations, particularly in those with fat malabsorption or low intake of animal products. And while too much vitamin A can be toxic, this usually only occurs with chronic supplementation, not through reasonable dietary intake of a whole food like liver. 1 to 2 servings per week provides plenty of retinol to meet your body's needs without risk of overload. Then there's B12, arguably the most critical B vitamin when it comes to aging. B12 deficiency can mimic dementia. It causes fatigue, cognitive slowing, nerve problems, and even mood issues. And here's the issue. As we age, our ability to get B12 from food declines due to lower stomach acid and reduced absorption. So older adults are already at higher risk of deficiency. Liver provides an extraordinarily dense source of B12, far more than regular meat, and in a form that's immediately usable by your body. I've seen patients come off B12 injections simply by adding a few ounces of liver per week to their diet. Iron is another key player. And we're not talking about the iron you find in fortified cereals or multivitamins, which is often poorly absorbed and can even cause inflammation. We're talking about heme iron, the kind your body recognizes and uses efficiently. Iron deficiency anemia is still a major issue among older adults, especially in women post-menopause or individuals with chronic digestive issues. But at the same time, iron overload, particularly in men or those with certain genetic conditions, is a risk. That's why food-based sources like liver are superior. The iron comes packaged with helpers like copper, vitamin A, and B12, all of which work together in making red blood cells and energy production. Speaking of copper, liver is one of the few foods that provides it in meaningful amounts. Most people focus on iron and forget copper, but they're metabolically intertwined. Copper deficiency can actually impair iron metabolism, increase oxidative stress, and contribute to heart problems. Again, liver provides this in balance, along with zinc and selenium, 2 more critical trace minerals for immune function, antioxidant defense, and thyroid health. Choline is another standout. It's essential for methylation, brain chemical synthesis, liver function, and brain health. Most people don't get enough, and while eggs are another excellent source, liver contains even more per gram. This becomes especially important in older adults trying to prevent or slow cognitive decline. Choline deficiency contributes to fatty liver, memory issues, and elevated homocysteine, all risk factors for heart and brain diseases. And then we have folate, not folic acid, which is the synthetic form added to processed foods, but natural folate in its active form. Liver is one of the richest food sources, and it comes packaged with B6 and B12, the full methylation triad. This is crucial for managing homocysteine, supporting brain chemical synthesis, and maintaining DNA integrity. For anyone dealing with cognitive decline, mood disorders, or heart risk, folate status is not optional. It's foundational. Now, I understand that liver isn't the most appetizing food for most people. It's got a strong flavor, an unusual texture, and it carries some cultural baggage. But we have to separate emotion from data, and the data is overwhelming. Just a few ounces of liver, once or twice per week, can correct or prevent deficiencies that would otherwise require multiple supplements, each with their own cost, adherence issues, and variable absorption. There's a psychological hurdle to get over with liver, but once you make it part of your routine, the return on investment is enormous. I've seen patients improve energy levels, stabilize mood, reverse anemia, and even improve sleep, all from reintroducing this one food. For those who absolutely can't tolerate it whole, there are desiccated liver capsules available, but I always prefer the real food version when possible. If you're concerned about sourcing, grass-fed beef liver is widely available and usually very affordable, far more so than most protein supplements or so-called superfoods. Liver doesn't replace everything, but it fills a wide range of micronutrient gaps with incredible efficiency for older adults, navigating fatigue, cognitive change, reduced resilience, and slower recovery. This is one of the most strategic additions you can make to a no-sugar, low-carb, nutrient-dense nutritional framework. It's not glamorous, but it's powerful. And in a world that's forgotten what real food can do, liver quietly continues to outperform. When you start looking at foods through the lens of metabolic health, how full they make you feel, their nutrient density, and how they impact your hormones, especially in older adults, you realize quickly that most of the modern food environment actually fails us. The average meal spikes blood sugar, triggers excessive insulin, fails to provide essential nutrients, and leaves you hungry again 2 hours later. But then, you find foods like avocados that do the exact opposite. They don't spike blood sugar. They don't flood your system with glucose or unhealthy processed oils. Instead, they offer a dense package of monounsaturated fat, fiber, and micronutrients, working in quiet but powerful ways to support the very systems that tend to decline with age. Insulin sensitivity, heart and blood vessel health, brain function, and regular digestion. Let's start with what's inside. One medium avocado contains roughly 20 grams of fat, most of which is oleic acid, a healthy, monounsaturated fat also found in olive oil. Oleic acid plays a key role in making your cell membranes fluid and has been shown to reduce inflammation markers. It's been studied extensively for its effects on cholesterol, particularly for its ability to improve your good HDL cholesterol and reduce small, dense LDL particles, which are the more harmful ones. For someone in their 60s or 70s looking to optimize heart health without the downside of blood sugar spikes or triglyceride surges, this is exactly the type of fat we want in the diet. The fat in avocados also plays an important role in nutrient absorption. Many vitamins like A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble, meaning they need dietary fat to be properly absorbed. Adding avocado to a salad isn't just about flavor. It significantly increases how well your body absorbs beneficial compounds like lutein and beta-carotene. In fact, studies show up to a 15-fold increase in absorption when avocado is present compared to when it isn't. That matters, especially for aging adults trying to maintain good eyesight, brain health, and immune function. But what makes avocado unique, even more than its fat profile, is the combination of high fiber and extremely low glycemic load. A single avocado delivers about 13 to 14 grams of fiber, mostly insoluble fiber that adds bulk and helps with digestion, along with soluble fibers that act as prebiotics, feeding the good bacteria in your gut. We now understand that gut health is connected to nearly every system in your body. Short-chain fatty acids, produced when good gut bacteria break down soluble fiber, play roles in controlling inflammation, maintaining gut barrier integrity, and even brain function. Yet the average older adult consumes far less than the recommended fiber intake, which contributes to everything from constipation and gut imbalance to poor blood sugar control and elevated cholesterol. Avocados fill that gap without the trade-off. Most high-fiber foods are also high in carbohydrates, like beans, oats, and whole grains. While those might work for younger, insulin-sensitive individuals, they're often problematic for older adults with impaired glucose tolerance or outright insulin resistance. Avocados deliver the fiber without the blood sugar penalty. Their impact on your blood sugar after meals is effectively neutral, and, in many cases, adding avocado to a meal that does contain carbohydrates actually blunts the overall blood sugar response of the entire meal due to slower digestion and positive effects on gut hormones. And then there's potassium, a mineral most people associate with bananas, but which is found in far greater concentration in avocados. One avocado provides around 700 to 900 milligrams of potassium, which is crucial for blood pressure regulation, nerve function, and muscle contraction. High potassium intake, especially when balanced with lower sodium, is consistently linked to lower cardiovascular risk. This becomes even more important in aging populations, where arteries can stiffen and the risk of high blood pressure escalates. Avocados provide that potassium in a food that supports rather than undermines your metabolic control. Magnesium is another critical micronutrient delivered in meaningful amounts by avocados. It's a helper in more than 300 enzyme reactions, including those involved in blood sugar regulation, energy production, and protein building. Magnesium deficiency is widespread, especially among older adults, due to both lower dietary intake and increased loss with age. The downstream effects are serious: insulin resistance, irregular heartbeats, muscle cramps, even sleep disruption. Adding a food like avocado helps restore this balance naturally, often without needing another pill. One more thing to consider is how easy they are to incorporate. Dietary interventions only work when they're sustainable. Older adults often face barriers to consistency, reduced appetite, dental issues, medication-induced nausea, or even food fatigue. Avocados are soft, palatable, and incredibly versatile. They can be eaten alone, mashed, spread, added to salads or smoothies, or paired perfectly with protein like eggs or salmon to create a complete, metabolically sound meal. They're also very filling thanks to their fat and fiber combination, which helps prevent overeating and supports calorie control without feeling deprived. What avocados don't contain is just as important. No added sugar, no starch, no unhealthy seed oils, and no significant amounts of anti-nutrients. That clean profile makes them particularly useful in nutritional strategies aimed at reversing insulin resistance, supporting cardiovascular health, or simply optimizing aging physiology. In a food landscape where most items either harm your metabolic health or do nothing to support it, avocados truly stand out. They're packed with nutrients without being excessively high in calories. They're low on the glycemic scale without being restrictive. And they provide foundational support for systems that need the most help as we age. In a well-designed, carb-restricted, nutrient-focused diet for longevity, they're not optional. They're strategic. When we talk about nutritional interventions that truly and measurably impact longevity, not just how many years you live, but how many healthy, active years you enjoy, wild-caught salmon belongs high on that list. It's not an exaggeration to call it longevity in a fillet. It checks almost every box we care about. Dense in long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, high in easily absorbed protein, rich in micronutrients, low in toxins, and uniquely effective in countering several mechanisms of aging, from inflammation and cellular energy decline to cognitive deterioration and heart problems. And for older adults, specifically those trying to preserve muscle mass, keep their brains sharp, and maintain metabolic flexibility without overloading on carbohydrates, wild-caught salmon may be one of the most efficient tools we have. Let's start with its omega-3 profile. Wild-caught salmon is one of the richest dietary sources of EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, and DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, two long-chain fatty acids that play central roles in reducing inflammation, modulating cell signaling, and maintaining the crucial structure of your brain and cellular energy factories. EPA is a potent anti-inflammatory compound. It actively helps resolve inflammation rather than just suppressing it. DHA, on the other hand, is critical for brain function, impacting everything from how your brain cells communicate to preventing neurodegenerative processes. For an aging adult, this isn't just a nice-to-have. This is essential for protecting your brain and cardiovascular system against the two biggest threats to your quality of life. There's also a profound cardiovascular benefit to regular intake of fatty fish, like wild salmon. Numerous studies have demonstrated that higher EPA and DHA intake is associated with reduced harmful fats in your blood, improved blood vessel function, lower resting heart rate, and decreased risk of sudden heart issues. Importantly, these effects appear even more pronounced in older adults and those with metabolic syndrome, likely because they're starting with higher levels of inflammation and poorer lipid profiles. Unlike certain medications, which operate through a very specific mechanism, omega-3s exert widespread systemic effects without compromising muscle function, blood sugar metabolism, or cellular energy production. Now, let's talk protein. 1 6-ounce fillet of wild-caught salmon provides roughly 35 to 40 grams of complete, highly available protein, enough to meet or exceed the anabolic threshold for stimulating muscle protein synthesis in most older adults, especially when paired with resistance training. As we age, we become less responsive to protein, a phenomenon called anabolic resistance. That means we don't just need adequate protein. We need strategically timed, high-quality protein sources that provide sufficient leucine and other essential amino acids to overcome that resistance and maintain lean muscle. Wild salmon delivers on that without the insulin spike that comes from carbohydrate-based meals or the inflammatory baggage of processed meats. But the story doesn't end at protein and omega-3s. Wild salmon is an underappreciated source of critical micronutrients, particularly selenium, B12, vitamin D, and astaxanthin. Selenium is essential for antioxidant defenses and thyroid regulation. B12 is foundational for brain health, nerve function, and red blood cell formation, especially crucial in seniors where absorption often drops. Vitamin D, as we know, is not just a vitamin but a hormone with widespread effects on immune regulation, bone health, and even mood. And then there's astaxanthin, a unique compound found in wild salmon, but not farmed, that has potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, protecting fats from damage and supporting cellular energy function in high-energy demand tissues, like your brain, heart, and muscles. Another key point: wild-caught salmon is a low-toxin food. Unlike farm-raised salmon, which often contains residues of antibiotics, PCBs, and is artificially colored, wild salmon is cleaner, naturally pigmented by astaxanthin, and lives in its natural environment. That truly matters. If you're eating a food for longevity, you want the full spectrum of benefits without the chronic exposure to compounds that degrade your cellular function or impair your body's detoxification pathways. And compliance, always a necessary filter in any nutrition plan, is surprisingly high with salmon. It's palatable, versatile, and easy to prepare. It's not a chore to eat. Most people enjoy it grilled, baked, or even raw as sashimi. That makes it more than just theoretically optimal. It makes it practically sustainable. You don't need to convince someone to eat it for years on end. You just need to create the habit and build it into a rotation. A couple of servings per week is enough to powerfully shift your omega-3 status in the right direction, support protein intake, and fill in key micronutrient gaps. So, when I think about what food I would include in the diet of a 70-year-old trying to maintain functional capacity into their 80s and 90s, wild-caught salmon consistently makes the list. Not just because it's anti-inflammatory or protects the heart, though it is. Not just because it supports brain function, though it does. But because it's one of the few foods that actively resist the decline of aging across multiple systems simultaneously. In other words, it's not just good, it's efficient. It does a lot of work per calorie, per gram, and per bite. That's the kind of food that earns a spot in your longevity toolbox. If we're serious about reducing the burden of chronic disease, specifically heart disease, cognitive decline, and widespread inflammation, then we need to pay close attention to the fats we're consuming. Not all fats are created equal, and not all oils are beneficial, despite what marketing might imply. In fact, the overwhelming presence of ultra-processed seed oils, high in inflammatory compounds and prone to damage, has done immense harm over the past century. Against this backdrop, extra virgin olive oil stands out not just as a better option, but as a uniquely beneficial compound. It's not a neutral ingredient. It's actively therapeutic, particularly for your aging vascular system. To understand why, let's start with olive oil's molecular makeup. The primary healthy fat in extra virgin olive oil, or EVOO, is oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat that is incredibly resistant to damage from oxidation compared to the more volatile fats found in most seed oils. That resistance to oxidation is not a trivial detail. Damaged fats are highly problematic. They damage blood vessel cells, impair important signaling, and promote plaque formation. So, from a heart health standpoint, consuming fats that are more stable under heat and within your body's environment is a fundamental principle. Olive oil perfectly fits that bill. But the benefits go well beyond stability. Extra virgin olive oil contains an entire package of bioactive compounds, powerful plant chemicals like oleocanthal, hydroxytyrosol, and oleuropein, that have profound effects on inflammation, blood vessel function, and fat metabolism. Oleocanthal, for example, has been shown to act like a natural anti-inflammatory, mimicking the effects of ibuprofen, but without the gastrointestinal side effects. These compounds have been observed to directly calm down major inflammation pathways in your body. Chronic, low-grade inflammation, what some refer to as inflammaging, is a hallmark of almost every major age-related disease. So, foods that directly calm that inflammation aren't just generally healthy, they are specifically targeted tools for longevity. The cardiovascular implications of regular olive oil consumption are particularly compelling. Look at the data from the PREDIMED trial, a large, well-designed study out of Spain that specifically looked at the effects of a Mediterranean diet enriched with extra virgin olive oil. Participants in the EVOO group experienced a 30% relative risk reduction in major cardiovascular events compared to those on a low-fat diet. And we're not just talking about minor improvements. This was actual reductions in heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular deaths. While LDL cholesterol often gets all the attention, it's worth remembering that what truly matters is the number of LDL particles, their size, and their oxidation state. Olive oil doesn't just leave healthy LDL alone. It appears to reduce the small, dense, more harmful LDL particles, improve the function of your good HDL, and improve how your body handles fats after meals. The net effect is a more favorable blood fat profile and reduced artery hardening risk. In older adults who often have increased insulin resistance and abnormal fat levels, even without clear disease, this is a meaningful dietary tool. Then there's blood pressure. EVO contains compounds that enhance your body's production of nitric oxide, which helps blood vessels relax and improves arterial flexibility. Clinical studies have shown that regular consumption of high polyphenol olive oil can reduce both systolic and diastolic blood pressure in individuals with high blood pressure, an effect comparable to low-dose medications, but achieved naturally through diet. For someone in their 60s or 70s, managing blood pressure without relying solely on medication isn't just about numbers. It's about avoiding side effects, improving quality of life, and maintaining your autonomy. Another underappreciated area is olive oil's effect on cognition. Your brain is particularly vulnerable to oxidative stress due to its high fat content and metabolic activity. Several studies suggest that diets rich in EVOO are associated with slower cognitive decline, improved memory, and a reduced risk of Alzheimer's disease. Again, the powerful plant compounds in olive oil appear to play a key role, helping to reduce harmful plaque formation, enhance cellular cleanup processes, and calm brain inflammation. This is an important consideration because cognitive decline doesn't begin when symptoms appear. It often begins decades earlier. So, incorporating olive oil into your diet starting in midlife or earlier is a strategic move for long-term brain health. Now, an important nuance. Not all olive oil is created equal. The benefits are most concentrated in fresh, cold-pressed, extra virgin olive oil that has been properly stored and minimally processed. Once you start refining olive oil, exposing it to heat, stripping away those beneficial plant compounds, you're left with a product that resembles most other neutral oils on the shelf. So, quality matters immensely. If you're consuming olive oil for its health-promoting effects, you want to prioritize varieties that are high in beneficial plant compounds, usually over 300 milligrams per kilogram, stored in dark bottles, and ideally harvested and bottled within the last year. The flavor intensity, often a bit peppery or bitter, isn't just a culinary feature. It's a sign of high beneficial compound content. People often ask, how much is optimal? While there's no one-size-fits-all number, studies suggest that somewhere in the range of 2 to 4 tablespoons per day provides measurable benefits. This isn't difficult to achieve if you're using olive oil generously on salads, vegetables, and protein sources. It's calorie-dense, yes, but it's also profoundly filling, and unlike seed oils, it doesn't contribute to metabolic problems. Olive oil isn't a magic bullet, but in the context of a nutrient-dense, carb-controlled, protein-sufficient diet, it is one of the most metabolically supportive fats you can consume. For aging adults, especially, where the goals are reducing inflammation, protecting blood vessels, supporting cognition, and preserving muscle mass, EVOO plays a central role. It's not just a passive ingredient. It's an active agent of health. And in a dietary landscape crowded with misleading claims and processed options, extra virgin olive oil remains one of the few truly time-tested, mechanistically sound interventions we can rely on. When evaluating food choices for older adults, especially those dealing with insulin resistance, declining cellular energy, or increased vulnerability to inflammation, you need to optimize for several things at once. You want nutrient density without a blood sugar spike. You want to feed your gut without feeding metabolic disease. You want bulk without burden. And non-starchy vegetables accomplish that in a way very few food groups can. They deliver fiber, both soluble and insoluble, while offering a negligible blood sugar impact, virtually zero sugar load, and a broad array of vitamins, minerals, and plant chemicals that support health at the cellular level. In short, they're low risk, high yield. But let's be precise. When I say non-starchy vegetables, I'm referring to plants like leafy greens, spinach, arugula, kale, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and things like zucchini, asparagus, celery, cucumbers, and bell peppers. These foods typically contain fewer than 5 grams of net carbohydrates per 100 grams, making them metabolically safe, even for individuals with compromised blood sugar handling. One of the primary reasons to emphasize these vegetables is fiber. Not just fiber as a vague, feel-good concept, but fiber as a biologically active helper. Insoluble fiber adds mechanical bulk, improving intestinal movement and reducing the risk of constipation, a very real and often under-discussed issue in older adults. More importantly, soluble fiber functions as a prebiotic. It feeds the good bacteria in your colon, which in turn produce beneficial short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. These aren't inert waste products. They act as signaling molecules. Butyrate, in particular, has been shown to support colon health, reduce widespread inflammation, and boost immune function. This isn't just about digestive health. It's about maintaining a low inflammatory state throughout your body, which becomes more difficult but more critical with age. It's also worth noting what these vegetables don't contain. They are essentially free of problematic fructose. While fructose from whole fruit isn't inherently bad in small quantities, it still needs to be processed in the liver, and in higher amounts can contribute to liver fat accumulation, particularly in insulin-resistant individuals. Non-starchy vegetables bypass that issue entirely. They offer micronutrients without requiring any liver metabolic cost. This becomes more relevant in older adults, many of whom already exhibit signs of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, often without even knowing it. And what about the fear of anti-nutrients in vegetables? Things like oxalates or lectins. That concern, while not entirely unfounded, is dramatically overblown in the context of a well-constructed diet. For most people, particularly those without severe autoimmune or digestive issues, the net benefit of consuming non-starchy vegetables far outweighs any theoretical downside. Cooking methods like steaming or sautéing reduce many of these compounds anyway. And for aging adults, who often need more, not fewer, micronutrients, the cost-benefit analysis clearly favors inclusion. Let's get into micronutrient density. Leafy greens like spinach and Swiss chard provide folate, magnesium, and potassium, 3 nutrients that are commonly deficient in older populations. Folate supports brain function. Magnesium is a helper in over 300 enzyme reactions, including those that regulate insulin sensitivity and energy production. Potassium is critical for blood pressure regulation and muscle contraction. The levels of these nutrients in a serving of sautéed greens aren't just a bonus, they're meaningful, especially when considered in a diet that's otherwise low in processed food and added sugars. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower offer another layer of benefit through compounds like sulforaphane. These plant chemicals have been shown to activate your body's natural detoxification systems, support antioxidant production, and may even have anti-cancer effects. For someone in their 60s or 70s, concerned about cellular damage, cancer prevention, or simply maintaining cellular resilience, these compounds act like microscopic biochemical armor. There's also the satiety factor. Non-starchy vegetables provide volume, literally. That's not just good for appetite regulation. It's critical for helping older adults feel full on fewer calories without feeling deprived. This is especially useful in the context of a low-carb diet, where energy-dense foods can sometimes lead to a lack of perceived fullness. Adding a large salad or a side of sautéed vegetables helps solve that problem without introducing any metabolic downside. Now, some people argue that vegetables are optional, especially in very strict carnivore or zero-carb communities. I think that's the wrong way to look at it, particularly for older adults. The goal isn't to simply avoid harm, it's to actively build resilience. While it's true that animal products provide many essential nutrients with high bioavailability, non-starchy vegetables contribute a different set of assets: fiber for gut health, beneficial plant compounds for inflammation control, and micronutrients that are often missing in aging bodies. They're not redundant, they're complementary. So how much is enough? I don't think there's a single magic number, but generally, a few cups per day spread across different types and colors is a good target. Aim for variety. Some cruciferous, some leafy, some colorful like peppers or radishes. Rotate your selections to get a broad range of nutrients. Preparation matters too. Steaming, roasting, sautéing in extra virgin olive oil, all are good options. Raw is fine if your stomach tolerates it well, but cooking can enhance digestibility and reduce unwanted compounds. And pairing vegetables with healthy fats like olive oil or avocado not only improves flavor, but also enhances absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. It's not about eating vegetables just for the sake of it. It's about using them strategically to maximize their benefit. Non-starchy vegetables don't do one thing. They do many things quietly in the background. They don't spike blood sugar. They don't feed disease. They don't crowd out more important macronutrients. They support gut health, provide micronutrients, lower inflammation, and enhance fullness. In a dietary pattern built for longevity, where the goal is to slow the decline of aging across every system, they're one of the most efficient tools we have. Not because they're trendy, but because they're scientifically sound. When we think about dietary priorities for aging adults, especially those focused on preserving lean muscle, optimizing cellular energy, and maintaining metabolic flexibility, high-quality protein sits at the very top of the list. The older you get, the harder it becomes to maintain muscle tissue due to something called anabolic resistance, a blunted response of muscle building to the protein you eat. In practical terms, this means that older adults need more protein per meal than younger people to achieve the same muscle-building response. So the conversation about protein sources becomes crucial. Not just how much, but what kind. Enter pasture-raised eggs, often underrated because of outdated cholesterol fears. Eggs, specifically those from pasture-raised hens, are a nearly perfect protein source for aging individuals. They contain all 9 essential amino acids in ideal proportions for human needs, and they come packaged with a host of other nutrients that are rarely found together in such easily absorbed form. One large egg has about 6 to 7 grams of protein, but it's not just the quantity that matters. It's the quality. Egg protein is considered a gold standard for biological value, meaning your body uses it exceptionally well. Leucine, the amino acid most responsible for triggering muscle protein synthesis, is particularly abundant. And remember, older individuals need around 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine per meal to overcome anabolic resistance. That's roughly what you'd get from consuming 4 to 5 whole eggs. A realistic, filling, and highly efficient meal. But eggs are more than just a protein delivery system. The yolks, often demonized in the low-fat era, are packed with micronutrients critical for aging. You get choline, which supports brain health and liver function. This is especially relevant because choline deficiency is common in older adults and contributes to fatty liver and cognitive decline. You also get vitamin D, lutein, and zeaxanthin, nutrients with brain protective and eye health benefits. The latter two are especially concentrated in pasture-raised eggs because the hens forage for a natural diet rich in these compounds. These compounds accumulate in the retina and protect against age-related macular degeneration, one of the leading causes of vision loss in older populations. Another key point is cholesterol. Specifically, the cholesterol in eggs is not the villain it's been made out to be. Dietary cholesterol has a minimal effect on blood cholesterol in most people. And, for many older adults, higher dietary cholesterol correlates with better hormone production, cell membrane integrity, and brain function. In fact, in the context of low inflammation and low glycemic load, cholesterol metabolism becomes far less problematic. We have to stop thinking in overly simplistic terms like one nutrient equals one outcome. The context always matters. Now, let's be clear. Not all eggs are created equal. The difference between conventional, battery-caged eggs and pasture-raised eggs is substantial, not just ethically, but nutritionally. Pasture-raised eggs have higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids, more vitamin E, and significantly greater antioxidant content. The fatty acid profile alone, specifically a higher ratio of anti-inflammatory omega-3s to omega-6s, justifies the upgrade. But what about those times when whole food isn't practical? Maybe you're intermittent fasting and want to hit a protein target without a full meal. Or maybe you're after a workout and need a fast-digesting source to stimulate muscle repair. That's where whey protein isolate comes in, not as a replacement for whole food, but as a strategic tool. Whey isolate is arguably the most efficient protein source for triggering muscle protein synthesis, particularly in older adults. It has an exceptionally high leucine content, around 2.5 grams per serving, and is rapidly absorbed. That speed of digestion matters right after training when your body is primed to rebuild tissue. Unlike casein or whole milk protein, whey isolate clears your gut and hits your bloodstream quickly, spiking amino acid concentrations and maximizing the muscle-building response. It's also remarkably low in carbs and fat, ideal for those trying to avoid blood sugar spikes. A high-quality isolate will have less than 1 gram of lactose per serving, making it digestible even for those with lactose sensitivity. Importantly, we're not talking about whey concentrate or blends with added sugars or fillers. You want a third-party tested, cold-processed isolate with minimal ingredients. Just the protein, ideally nothing else. Whey isolate is also insulinogenic, but in a useful way. It triggers insulin, yes, but insulin isn't the enemy. It's a nutrient signaling hormone. When paired with resistance training and consumed in a low-glucose environment, a transient spike in insulin can be highly anabolic and help direct nutrients into muscle rather than fat. This is part of the metabolic advantage of protein. It supports lean muscle retention without contributing to insulin resistance or fat gain, particularly when carbohydrate intake is kept in check. So where does this leave us, Senior Fit Nation? For older adults aiming to maintain strength, preserve independence, and delay the onset of frailty, consistent high-quality protein intake, ideally in 3 well-distributed meals per day, is non-negotiable. Pasture-raised eggs offer a highly available, nutrient-dense, low-carb package of protein with built-in neuroprotective and anti-inflammatory benefits. They should be a staple. But in those moments when whole food isn't ideal, or when precise protein dosing is required, whey isolate serves as a highly effective helper. This isn't about eating like a bodybuilder. It's about training and feeding your aging body like the high-performance machine it is. Protein is the cornerstone of that strategy, and both pasture-raised eggs and whey isolate are tools that deliver disproportionately large returns for their caloric cost. They help you fight sarcopenia, stabilize blood sugar, support brain function, and stay metabolically agile. In other words, they help you stay in the game longer, stronger, and sharper.